Good afternoon. In today's lecture, we will discuss in detail software and vendor selection for the enterprise systems. First, let us review the basics of ERP software. ERP software is a group of integrated applications that automates and streamlines key business processes. It serves as a centralized data repository and provides workflow automation and real-time insights. ERP software also comes with capabilities for ensuring compliance with industry and regulatory standards, improving customer service, and analyzing the financial health of your organization. Now we are going to walk you over how an ERP software selection is done through following stage process that helps you determine your business needs, evaluate and compare solutions, validate your technical requirements, and negotiate a great contract. So after attending this lecture, you will be able to understand the early steps in the purchasing and implementing process, determine the total cost of ownership and what it is to partner with an ERP vendor, understand why the first steps in the purchase of an ERP are important to the change management process, and finally identify the steps involved in negotiating a contract with a vendor. In this lecture, we will cover from the beginning to best position how a company could implement an ERP successfully. Once the decision or case has been made to replace the existing applications or systems, the initial step involves the purchase of an ERP system. The selection of a vendor that best meets the needs and long-term directions of the company is a critical first step in a successful implementation. In selecting a vendor, a well-understood selection process needs to be utilized. Depending on a given company's experience in purchasing an ERP system, that company may want to bring a specialized consulting firm to assist in the selection process. In any phase, the steps involved in selecting a vendor generally are based on best fit of an ERP to business functions and the overall ERP vendor's product performance in the market. The ERP purchasing process includes 8 different processes. The first step of researching and gathering vendors' information in order to demonstrate and evaluate proper vendors and identify a short list of whom will help to shape business requirements. Next, the user and system requirements are identified and documented by verifying the current legacy system functionality or by using business process re-engineering so that user requirements are matched with the software features. The third step is developing the request for proposal that contains the required ERP system functionality, specified hardware and software infrastructure, training requirements, and finally, any specific contract issues. Next, the request for proposal is sent to the vendors, and the responses are analyzed and evaluated by different participants of the vendor selection process, such as office staff, IT staff, and contract staff. The process of analysis and selection includes evaluation of bids, functional evaluation, technical evaluation, vendor detailed demonstrations, contract references, and develop a total cost of ownership. The next step is vendor negotiations that include contract review and change and the pricing of software purchasing, maintenance, and consulting support. The final step is the software purchasing process with the best license agreement that prepares for a successful implementation. The first step in selecting an ERP system is to research systems of different ERP vendors in the market and to identify a short list of vendors who will help to shape business requirements. This process is helpful for companies moving from aging legacy systems and technologies to current and state-of-the-art technologies. where the state-of-the-art ERP system purchase will mean the replacement of the current hardware and software infrastructure. Identifying and researching all aspects of a vendor package and the platform that the hardware and software will run on assist companies in shaping the total cost of ownership. Today, identifying vendors is not difficult by using the current web search engines as a starting point. It also helps to know what packages the competitors are using. An extensive list of vendors is important for a successful implementation. Another strategy to identify vendors is to ask department managers and experts of the company if they know vendors that should be considered. Since this process is very important, including end users will help with change management issues in the project. It will also help to gain and secure trust for later in the implementation. The following should be considered when researching vendors and gathering information. First, other business using the vendor. This includes how many companies or competitors are using the system and for what purpose. The financial position of the vendors, which should include sales, revenues, profit, gross, research and development. The vendor's implementation philosophy and support issues. This can be accomplished through calls to companies using the software or IT researching, companies that survey and collect this type of information on a regular basis. The hardware and software infrastructure identifies the platform that will fit with the company's direction. The vendor direction includes the information that should be tracked through the vendor history of a change and upgrade to the system, along with a statement of directions for each vendor. The currency of technology, where vendor software is often written in older technology, but the ability to migrate to new technology must be understood and documented during the research process. The release and upgrade strategy includes how often are these releases are done and what is included in them. Are fixes timely and minor upgrades included periodically? Are there vendors' costs related to upgrades and so on? Development and maintenance staff. The size of the ERP vendor systems will have an effect on the development and maintenance staff that will be included in the company. The system update process helps to understand how much your company directions and long-term needs will be met by these vendors. SAP, founded in 1972, is the recognized leader among ERP vendors, currently claiming the largest market share. Its solutions are for all types of industries and for every major market. Headquartered in Waldorf, Germany, with more than 12 million users and more than 1,500 partners, SAP employs more than 32,000 people in more than 50 countries. Its products include MySAP, Business Package, SAP NetWeaver, and solutions for small and mid-sized companies. Oracle or PeopleSoft technologies can be found in every industry around the world and in the office of 98 of the Fortune 100 companies. Oracle is the first software company to develop and deploy 100% Internet-enabled enterprise software across its entire product line, including databases, business applications, application development, and decision support tools. Oracle provides solutions divided by industry category. The company promises long-term support for customers of PeopleSoft, acquired in 2004. They have more than 40,000 professionals working in more than 100 countries around the world. Their three principles are as follows: simplify, standardize, and automate. Oracle is headquartered in Redwood Shores, California. The third ERP vendor is Lawson, founded in 1975, and provides industry-tailored software solutions. The Lawson solutions include enterprise performance management, distribution financial, human resources, procurement, retail operations, and service process optimization. The fourth ERP vendor is Ssa Global. By acquiring BAN in 2004, Ssa Global effectively doubled the company's size. They claim to offer solutions that accomplish specific goals in shorter time frames and that they are more efficient with time. Headquartered in Chicago, Ssa Global has offices all over the world. Great Plains offers integrated capabilities for financial management, distribution, manufacturing, project accounting, HR management, field service management, and business analytics. Part of the Microsoft Business Solutions group of products, its solutions can be tailored according to any business needs. Epicor focuses on enterprise software solutions for mid-market companies around the world. The company claims to have solutions to a variety of needs, whether a customer is looking for a complete end-to-end enterprise software solution or a specific application. It provides solutions for a limited number of specific industries, including nonprofit, distribution, manufacturing, and hospitality. Infor Visual is a flexible, fully integrated, and easy-to-use ERP package that is widely deployed across many different types of industries, from aerospace to biomedical, capital equipment, precision tools, and more. Infor Visual is a scalable solution with powerful technology to deliver real-time information, streamline operations, and customer satisfaction. With a state-of-the-art advanced planning and scheduling, quality management, customer relationship management, time and attendance, business intelligence, and warehouse management systems capabilities that are built in, where visual appeals come with a combination of affordable depth of functionality and easy-to-use tools. Clicks Online, full package of enterprise resource planning, manufacturing execution systems, and supply chain management features let you eliminate the need for costly, time-consuming software and hardware installation. You gain the flexibility to meet a unique needs of your enterprise. The second step is matching user requirements to features. There are two approaches to matching requirements to an ERP system. The first is a traditional approach to meet with departments and groups in the organization and define requirements taking into account legacy system functionality and business process re-engineering. A newer approach that has been addressed after the ERP was purchased is the format fit gap process. The identification and documentation of user and system requirements can be done as an exercise by documenting current legacy system functionality and using business process re-engineering to address best practices. The process of documenting current legacy systems functionality and using business process re-engineering to address best practices in the industry will provide the company with a functional requirements on which to select an ERP system. A key component of the document will need to be how the integrated ERP system cross-functional data flow will affect departments within the company, where this will be very new to the subject matter experts and needs to be understood fully by them as the project moves forward. This process will assist in selecting an ERP based on facts and documented needs. Two major documents are often a result of the functional requirements process. The first is the data and functional flow of departmental or business processes, including any changes to those processes. The second one is a table or description of functions in each department and the level of importance of each function. Some functions are absolute requirements, whereas others are nice to have. With departmental functions and business processes documented, the company can now perform a high-level evaluation of the vendors identified A request of information is sometimes used to get the information from the ERP vendors. This is a written request to vendors asking for ERP system information only and is not part of the bid process. In gathering and reviewing the information, it will quickly become apparent how closely the company's business processes match a vendor's system. This will also help the company to evaluate if the documented processes are rational and reasonable. Again, identifying vendor system functionality based on documented processes will help to purchase a system based on facts. This is a request for information example. As with most processes, the data from the request for information will raise questions. This becomes an appropriate time to bring in several of the vendors and have them answer questions related to functionality and even to demonstrate the system. Seeing a system visually will be important. It will add a level of believability to the process and start to create more and a sense of momentum to the project. The second approach to identifying ERP functionality with organization requirements is by conducting a fit gap approach. Fit gaps is a step in the implementation process but has been usually completed after the ERP has been purchased. While some vendors will change for fit gaps, some organizations today have made this part of the vendor selection process and found it very helpful in selecting the best vendor for their business. The fit gap process had the vendor walking the organization through the ERP functionality. The organization can then see that works for them, what business process will need to change, and what changes are necessary for the ERP to work for the organization. Time-consuming organizations have found that they know just what they are buying and what changes are necessary before the implementation is in full swing. With this information, the organization can decide on what change will be made to the system and get an estimate on how much they cost. A benefit of this process is the organization will know upfront what changes will be made to the ERP and a cost estimate to the ERP purchase process. In this figure, we explain a detailed view of business process-oriented gap fit analysis. The gap fit concept with the enterprise software is quite simple. Commercial software executes business process. The implementing organization has a set of desired to be business processes. The analysis compares the processes executed by the software to the desired organizational process, and a comparison is made. The results of the comparison are documented. The process determines the data that is needed to perform the functions within the organization. Required data quality depends on the needs of the process. The bid process is an expensive and time-consuming process for both company and vendors. It is mostly required in public institutions, while in private industry is not very required, but it can provide a significant software saving when done right. Also, one of the benefits of this process is the more detailed understanding of the ERP system functionality and a readiness of the vendors to work with the company to ensure a successful implementation. It also provides a comparing functionality to define which system will work best in the company's current and future environment. The request for proposals should include the types of ERP systems the company wants with a specific functionality, along with a specified hardware and software infrastructure, training requirements, and any specific contract issues required by the company. If the company has an infrastructure in place, it should be clearly stated in the request. A format to respond to the bid, including a pricing sheet, a clear description of the selection process, and a timeline for selecting an ERP vendor, should be part of the request for proposal. The goal will be to evaluate bids from vendors and decide which system will work best for the company's current and future environment. The task of evaluating ERP system fits will take organizing and planning. There will be many components to a bid that require many different skill sets. Office staff will need to evaluate functionality, IT staff will evaluate the technology requirements, and the contract staff will need to evaluate the contract and pricing of the system. All of this will need to be coordinated to select the top 1, 2, or 3 vendors with which to start negotiating a purchase. If there is a clearly one vendor only that meets the needs with no close second or third, the negotiation should only include that vendor. In case of more than one vendor, be sure to negotiate with each of them, and if needed, meet the vendors to clarify any questions and answers. The bid evaluation and any vendor discussions should focus on the best fit. It's important to understand that no vendor will meet all the requirements, and further evaluation is needed if the number of vendors is not reduced to 1. One must evaluate both the functionality as well as any other additional components needed to make the ERP operational, the expansion capability of the ERP system if growth occurs within the company. It's appropriate to check references of the vendors looking for issues related to functionality and implementation. It's also helpful to learn from other experiences if found. Last thing, to develop and analyze the total cost of ownership. This can be difficult, but it should be inclusive of all costs. The largest cost of the system occur after the implementation in the system maintenance and upgrades. The actual software purchase will likely be less than 15% of the overall cost. The total cost of ownership was developed in the 1980s as the result of PC hardware and software spread. In moving computers to the desktop, many companies were evaluating what it would take to maintain all of the PCs that were showing up on staff desktop. Total cost of ownership, which is essentially for ERP systems development, provides a financial framework for evaluating and comparing products. It proved to be a good evaluation tool that was adopted and used in many other areas of IT. Its accuracy in ERP system has been marginal, but it is worthwhile exercise in the selection process. Now, what does ERP really cost? The software installation has so many variables, and total cost will depend on the number of divisions it will serve, the number of modules installed, the amount of integrations that will be required with existing systems, the readiness of the company to change, and the ambition of the project. ERP system costs should largely consider the context of a lifecycle cost or total cost of ownership, including the cost of hardware, software, and implementation, as well as the support and maintenance costs. Total cost of ownership is defined as the total cost of owning or using an asset or technology over its entire life cycle. Therefore, a total cost of ownership analysis examines every expense involved in making an investment. The total cost of ownership for enterprise software is the summation of all direct and indirect costs acquired by the software, and it's critical part of the return on investment calculation. 3 main or basic types of costs are the startup cost of deploying new software into production, operational costs deploying the software for functional use and maintaining the technology over its lifetime, and finally, the retirement cost when retiring the software. So the formula for the total cost of ownership calculation includes the initial startup cost, including software, hardware implementation, data migration, user license, and training. The operating cost during the software useful life, including software maintenance and support, security enhancements, downtime, and upgrades. And the retirement cost at the end of the software life, software retiring, including data export, achieved systems inactivating license. So the formula of the total cost of ownership is a summation of the initial startup cost and the operating cost minus the retirement cost. Now let us consider the following example in the next slide. So in this example, your company is comparing proposals of two vendors, V1 and V2, regarding the following cost components. For initial cost, purchase price of the software license, cost of hardware, implementation cost including deploy, implement, integrate, and secure the software, and user training. Operating costs include internal labor costs to manage the software and support the users, bandwidth, floor space, power and cooling, and the annual vendor maintenance, support, and assurance cost. And the last type of cost is a retirement cost, which is typically zero for the software, but you might be able to sell the hardware. For this comparative analysis, your project a useful life of 5 years, so you set 5 years at the time duration and discover the following costs, as will be shown in the next table. As you see in this table, the purchase price for vendor 1 is $1 million, and for the V2 or vendor 2 is $800,000. And so is the cost of hardware, implementation cost, the user training, upgrade cost, the utility cost and maintenance, and finally the retirement cost. So for vendor or for the first vendor, we sum all the cost items in this table, and we found that the cost for the Arb system from the first vendor is $2,755,000, while for the Arb system from the second vendor is $2,115,000. So the result of this problem is the calculated total cost of ownership of the second vendor over 5 years appears to be the better choice, with a total cost $640,000 lower than the first vendor. Here is another example. A company is currently looking to invest in a human resource software that helps business to develop better relationship with its workers by using different tools to analyze their performance, habits, and lifestyle. The company decided that the cost of purchasing the software is $35,000, which includes installation and 24/7 technical support for 5 years. A license must be renewed each year, and its cost is $300 to do so. Updates are free for the first year, but after that, the company must pay $50 a month to get monthly updates of the software database and interface. Finally, training the staff involved cost of $350 per staff or per person, and the company has to train at least 5 personnel. The project was given a useful lifetime of 5 years. After performing the calculations, the company figured that the total cost of ownership for the project would be $40,350. So how this value was calculated? So as you see in this table, the cost of purchasing the system is $35,000. The renewal fees per year is $300 multiplied by 4 years, so the total is $1,200. The upgrades, $50 per month for 4 years, so the total is $2,400. And finally, the training of file personnel from the staff, $350 per person. For 5 persons is $1,750. So the summation of the all costs is $40,350. The last step in the selection of vendor process is the contract management and license agreement. The goal of this phase for a company and vendor to end up with the best license agreement and prepare for a successful implementation. If there are two vendors, it is the best to help understand the value of each product and create a competition between the competing vendors. Contract negotiations should be centered on the product, services, and maintenance after evaluating vendors and reducing the number of possibilities down to one or two. Terms and conditions will be a major part of the contract and will be addressed by the users or buyers. Professional services for the implementation or installation can be included within the bid or separately, where there are many professional consulting companies with much experience in system implementation that may be used. This has been more preferred method because software vendors may not have the best experience in implementing an ERP system. During discussions with the vendors, contract lifecycle management will need to be addressed during the contract talks, where every ERP contract should have all deliverables must be clearly identified with delivery dates associated, and ensure that you, the customer, have acceptance authority, and finally identifying those responsible on both sides for contract management and who had the authority to authorize change to the system. There will be more of a focus on the program manager and the change management process after the purchase of an ERP system to ensure the ERP implementation success and highlight the importance of a contract manager. The program manager must appoint a contract quality manager or contract monitor. It will be this person's responsibility to become an expert on the contract terms and conditions. They will have primary responsibility for making sure both sides are tolerated by the terms and conditions of the contract. The importance here is that they will monitor both sides, as important as it's for the monitor to keep the vendors honest. It's vitally important to monitor the buyer's program manager to keep the company implementing the system within the terms of the contract. A program manager or other employee involved in the implementation could by mistake ramble beyond the boundaries of the contract, so violating the agreement, which may not matter when things are going smoothly, but if something goes wrong, this could be used against the buyer, resulting in negotiations or court actions. Finally, contract negotiations can take a significant amount of time to finalize, so expectations management is very important during that time. Senior management and end users have all been through the process and are anxious about the purchase. Communication progress, including the next step, keeps all involved and will also help to maintain momentum. It's best to over-communicate during this phase. Management must play a role in choosing the right system that will meet the company's needs and requirements. An open process based on realistic needs in selecting a vendor sets the stage for the implementation. System needs or requirements can be based on the legacy system, a business process re-engineering analysis, or both. Most companies choose the latter option, as ERP systems are such different systems from the majority of legacy systems. Management must remember that the vendors are very skilled at selling their systems. There must be enough time allocated to evaluate the system, observe a complete and comprehensive demonstration, and communicate to reference and other using the systems. Also to how the system currently works. Discussions with the vendor about future improvements and directions must be scheduled. This will allow management to understand how the vendor will be able to address the growing needs within the company and not feel like they are limited in directions and scope. Last, if at all possible, it's best to have a couple of vendors that can meet the company's needs for an ERP system. Negotiating with two vendors is time-consuming, but it will yield a better purchase price. If the company has little or no experience in negotiating software contracts, there are consultants that can help. Remember that vendors have a staff of skilled negotiators and do this on a regular basis. In the negotiations, be sure to address total cost of ownership. The Erp software is a small percentage of the overall implementation cost. There will be an extra software products, hardware, and implementation support that should be part of the overall equation. In this lecture, we reviewed the system development lifecycle, both traditional and alternative approaches, and points out the benefits and limitations of the traditional and the newer approaches, reviewing the 5 phases of the SDLC approaches, including investigation, analysis, design, implementation, and maintenance, that provides the necessary background to understand the ERP lifecycle methodologies and see why the SDLC approaches cannot be used without changes for ERP implementation. The ERP lifecycle has variations from the SDLC process due to different reasons. However, the key reason is that organization buy ERP as pre-packaged software and then have to customize them, as well as change their company's business processes to implement these systems. Because ERP systems are complex systems that impact a large number of users in the organization, the implementation team will need a proper installation and change management plans. So in summary, a business must deal in fact with every step of purchasing an ERP system. The purchase decisions will be made based on data by gathering information, researching vendors, documenting business processes, and reviewing vendors' bids. Knowing detailed information on ERP system functionality and business requirements is the basis for setting implementation expectations. This is very important during the implementation phase, and during a project, you will often find yourself going back to the original document for clarification, support, and reviewing decisions. Thank you, and see you next lecture.